What an honor to have you aboard the transatlantic. So happy.
Thank you for inviting me. This is I'm a huge fan. I love what you do. I think it's great, and the energy is positive. So I'm honored to be on it.
Thank you. But I have to say, I'm a huge fan of your work, of your agency, what you've done like so far. So I would say, let's go through the 7 questions.
Let's do it.
This interview. Let's go from
I'm ready.
the first one.
Okay.
You're ready. Okay.
I'm ready.
First one. We know more about space than the ocean. It must be because we like to look at the stars rather than what's underneath our feet. That's say there is an undeniable fact. It's actually easier to send a person to space than to send it underneath our feet, below in the deep abyss of the ocean. Bridges this to advertising. I think it's easier to look at what's next rather than to look at what's underneath our feet, below our feet. So I'm asking you, what's underneath our creative business at the moment that we haven't explored yet?
That's a great question. Here's what I think we haven't explored in general. I think that there is enormous wealth in talent and ideas that come from diverse communities, for people who have a different point of view, who have different cultural experiences. And I believe that, one of the things that we have to do is, stop snorkeling and start diving, right? Awesome. And I think what ends up happening is we just look at the surface and we don't dig deep. We don't go under the water deep enough to find those really incredible nuances that make us all different and add to this kind of beautiful ocean, right? So for me, I think what we have to do and what the industry has to do is stop being interested in keeping the status quo and start being interested in keeping kind of, what I think they do is they keep iterating versus keep innovating. And so I think we've got to start kind of really looking underneath the surface and going beyond just putting on that snorkel mask and put on the tank, go deep and see what's under there, because that's where the amazing kind of jewels and the things that make us all kind of better people, better work, and more interesting. So that's what I would say.
I love like, say, stop being on the surface, start diving. Actually, I read this fact when I was like preparing the question. It's easier to send someone in space rather than like, down to the ocean, because the deeper you go, the more pressure is above you. Yeah. And down there in the deepest side of the ocean, there is so much pressure that is equal to 50 airplanes on top of you. Yeah, that's why it's very, very difficult to send someone down the ocean. And that's why it's very difficult to explore. But your metaphor, it says like stop being on the surface and start like looking down. It's a beautiful metaphor and a reminder for our industry to look down rather than to look up.
Just always look up. Sometimes the things that really mean something are right around us, and we got to stop kind of doing this and start doing a little bit of it.
Great, man. Great. Second question.
Okay.
They quotes, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop," can be applied to artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, one of the most genial and multimedia artists of our generation. I'm in love with them. I remember back, I digress for a moment, but I remember back when I was living in New York City, I used to pass down his old apartment in Grand John Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so. Great, like, great guy. Anyway, he was an ocean too often misunderstood. And there is an interesting anecdote about Jean-Michel. During a 1983 interview, Mark Miller, a journalist with a PhD in arts and history, asked Jean-Michel, "What does the painting say here? What's the message?" And Jean-Michel looked at him and say, "The message? Oh, that's just some orange and black, nothing else." The answer of Jean-Michel show Mark that he was trying to find an explanation on something that didn't need to be explained.
Right.
Now, we are not making arts. We are in the business of advertising. However, we are storytellers and we tell stories. Even if this word has become of a buzz, well, we tell story. Do you think that we over-explain our stories sometime? If so, what would you subtract to the creative process?
Ooh, okay, two things. One, I'm very jealous that you got to meet him and I never got to meet him in my life. He's one of the most prolific, amazing artists of our time. So you'll have to fill me in on what that experience is like later. Here's what I will tell you. First of all, I disagree with the premise a little bit because I actually believe storytelling is an art, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that we adapt that art based on the canvas that we're kind of using, right? So sometimes that canvas might be a 30-second piece of storytelling. Other times it might be 2 hours in content. Other times it might be a billboard. So I think we adapt it. We adapt the storytelling based on the consumer we're talking to. So the story that we're going to tell to an 8-year-old is very different than the story we'll tell to a 30-year-old. So I do think we have to start to consider that as an art form, because I really do believe it is an art form. What I would also say that one of the things that I think, you know, that example you gave was great, because sometimes the beauty is just in front of us, and that should be enough to make us pause and love it and accept it for what it is. And I think sometimes we do want to read too much into it, and sometimes it's just what it's supposed to be. I mean, if you look at, I remember walking in Central Park, and Christoph did the gates, and I just happened on it. I didn't know it was going to be there, and my husband and I were just kind of in New York when we walked through it. And it was the most breathtaking, quiet moment that I remember, because you didn't expect it. It just kind of came up on you, and you just had to sit back and breathe and accept it for what it was. I think sometimes what we do is we get, in our business, we get constrained by the process, right? And I'm not saying the process isn't important, but it can't get in the way of holding things back and keeping us from seeing the beauty of what is right in front of us. And everyone has a different process. Everyone has a different way of experiencing and going to get to that art, to get to that sense of storytelling. It doesn't mean one is better than another. It's just there are different paths that we have to take. So I guess in answering to your question, yes, I do believe that we can sometimes overthink, and sometimes the best ideas are right there in front of us, and we should accept that and own it and love it and appreciate it, and not overthink it. But I do believe that storytelling in all of its kind of different forms is an art form as well. So
and
I
I
don't
do
know.
agree. I do agree on the fact that the process gets in the way, and there are examples out there in the arts, in literature, for instance. I remember William Burroughs, when he used to write his novel and his fiction,
Yep.
used to remove on the first draft every single punctuation. There was no punctuation. He would write that, right? Same like with the Beat generation was very keen on that kind of like removing, subtracting the process. So like, you know, Jack Kerouac wrote like, you know, on the roads on a scroll rather than like, you know, on paper, on sheet. So it's like, I think like there is something interesting about the process that get in the way in how you actually simplify that part. So I can relate to that. When you were telling that, I found like very interesting. Good, man.
Good.
Third question.
Okay.
A British woman survived for 10 hours in the sea off the coast of Croatia after falling from the back of a cruise ship. Crazy. The best way to survive in the sea is to actually slow down the rates at which your body cools. Avoid swimming and instead floating. Right. So floating is the key to survive as long as you could in the sea before someone rescued. In a few words, floating become your weapon. Now, you've been in the advertising business for quite some time. You had an amazing career and it's continuing, like, your journey continued brilliantly. Now, looking at your achievements, your remarkable path, it is safe to assume that you unlocked somehow the secrets, if there ever was one, at least your secrets. So tell me, what is your secret in this business? How did you thrive? How did you survive for so long?
Wow. How did I survive? If I'm going to be completely honest, I think I've survived by surrounding myself with some incredible people who teach me new things, people who make me laugh. I think that is so critical. They keep me from taking myself too seriously, but not, in a respectful way. I think we all need to do that. I've survived by surrounding myself with people who have a point of view and aren't afraid to stand up for that point of view. We may not always agree, and that's fine, but having people who really do believe in something or a creative direction or a strategic thought and can marshal kind of the resources to support that, I find really, really inspiring. And I think the other part, I find myself drawn to people who like to mentor, people who believe that they have to give something back. We've all benefited from having these incredible people in our lives that we've learned from, and who have taken the time to kind of put their arms around us or to push us in a direction that they know is the right direction, but they do it gently. They do it, no, sometimes not so gently, but they do it in a way that, they know, and that they're doing it for your own benefit. And I like being around teachers. And I think most people who are successful in our business are tremendously curious, and they're always either looking for ways to solve a problem or looking just for ways to make things, sing and kind of lift off a page or jump off of a screen. And I just love being around people like that because we're entrepreneurial in a sense. So I know I am, and I have this deep curiosity for constantly, exploring and finding new things and learning about. And I know I don't know it all, so I kind of grab people around me that can help educate me. So, and I know that if I do that, I've got to do that for other people as well. So,
give something back is so important to me. Yeah. When people ask me, like, why did you start Transatlantic? I start because when I was a kid growing up, like in a small village near Rome, to get into advertising, it was very hard for me. And to get to know mentors and icons, it was impossible because most of them were in America, in another continent. So I didn't have access to legendary minds like you or like other people in the business.
Yeah.
What happened is, like, when I moved to America, I got momentum, I got very lucky, and my career unfolded like in a very good way. And during the pandemic, I found out that it was a moment for me to, I bumped into this rule called empty the bucket. When empty the bucket, it's a rule. And it say, when your bucket is full, and it's been filled with amazing stuff, it's time for you to empty your buckets and ask other people fill theirs.
Oh my God, I love that. So
Transatlantic was created for this very reason. I wanted to give young creative in Europe, and especially in Italy,
That's brilliant.
a channel to be inspired from, to be inspired by, to find like legendary minds in the industry
Yeah.
and kind of like connect with them. And so here we are. And I had to say, the response has been amazing. Like,
That's
you
great.
know, and it's a lesson for me. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I mean, it's funny because finally I can put like a story behind the name. You know, I've known you for quite some time
Yeah.
because you are the founder of one of the most respectful agency in
Oh, that's great.
business in the United States, right? You know, but now I can put a story behind. Now I can put a smile behind it, and hopefully someone else can, back in Europe or across the States. So empty the bucket is a great rule.
I love that. I'm going to use that. I will give you credit for it, but
True.
I got to tell you, it's so beautiful because, and it's so poetic because, you know, people have done that for me. And I really did feel like, okay, I have to play it forward for someone else. And we have this human obligation, I think, to do that for people. And there's nothing better than seeing someone who, you know, sometimes you're working with someone and they're struggling a little bit, and then all of a sudden they
Yeah,
get it. And it's like that moment of that aha, like, oh
right.
my God. And I think I get more excited for them than they do sometimes, because you're like, okay, I knew that they were going to get there. I knew it was going to take some time, but my God, you can see their whole body go from here
Absolutely.
to here, and the expression go from here to here. It's awesome. So yeah, I think that's great.
Good. Fourth question, man.
Okay.
A nice fantasy bring crazy story among sailors. Now, we are crossing your ocean and I have a crazy story for you.
Okay.
Mary Clayton is an American soul and gospel singer. She's also the girl who, back in 1969, got woken up in the middle of the night by Mick Jagger's manager. He asked her if she could dress quickly and come to the studio to record the vocals of Gimme Shelter. Clayton put some clothes and drove to the studio in the middle of the night. She made a recording with just a few takes and then returned home to bed. To this day, it remains the most prominent contribution to a Rolling Stones track by a female vocalist. Has it ever happened to you that a client woke you up in the middle of the night and what you thought was an inconvenience turned out to be one of the most remarkable and important contributions you have made to the business?
Wow. That's a great question. I can be honest and tell you that I've actually never had well, clients have called, but like not when I was in the dead of sleep and like, oh my God, Aaron, I got this idea. You got to get up. We got to, I've actually done it the other way. It was really funny. I'll tell you a story. So when I was working, AT&T was a client.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't a client at the time. I had done a lot of work in the music space and putting celebrities in ads and using music and tours and all that sort of stuff. And I had signed Boys to Men.
Oh yeah.
To a deal with Pepsi for one of the brands. It was called Slice, and so they were gonna do commercials around it. And we were in New York, and it was the Grammy Awards. And if you've ever gone to the Grammy Awards, it's amazing. It's an incredible experience. It was at Radio City Music Hall, and we had tickets for the guys, and Pepsi was a sponsor at the time, and so we had tickets for the guys. And I guess their bodyguard didn't have a ticket. And I said, you know what? He can take. I've been to the Grammys a million times, and this is before they were as huge as they are now. And I had this extra ticket, and I said, you know what? Let me give it to the bodyguard. I'm going to go to the hotel, and I'll watch it on TV. I'll order room service, and then after the show is over, which the hotel was the Regal Royale, it was right around the corner from Radio City. And so after the show, I'll just go back, pick up the guys, and then we'll go and do all the parties and the events afterwards. And so I gave him the ticket. I walked back to the hotel, and I'm watching the show, and Whitney Houston performed.
Mm.
And Whitney Houston was in this incredible, it looked like a Vera Wang dress. I mean, she was gorgeous. I mean, she always looked good, right? And she started singing. And I was, first of all, I was upset that I wasn't there. I was like, oh my God, this is Whitney Houston. And I'm not there. But anyways, I did it for the right reason. And so I'm watching her sing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this voice, I forgot how incredible this voice, and it was effortless. And so I called my friend who used to be at Pepsi and went over to work at AT&T. His name was Dan Clark. He was the vice president of advertising at AT&T. And I picked up the phone. I said, Dan, I've got a good idea for you. I think that you've got this campaign called True Voice. Why don't we connect what I believe is our generation's true voice, Whitney Houston, and have her work with you on this campaign, and it can show what AT&T and Whitney Houston can do, and blah, blah, blah. And he loved it. But I got his voicemail. So I guess part of what you're saying is true, because I went out, got back to the hotel. It was probably, late 3 o'clock in the morning, and went to bed. And then about 6 o'clock, the phone rang. And I was, kind of out of it. And he says, Aaron, this is Dan. I love the idea. And I was like, what idea? What is he talking about? It was so late. And that's how we ended up doing the True Voice campaign with
what a great story, man.
So I guess it worked both ways. But I would be thrilled because that kind of energy, sometimes you can't contain it. You just, when it comes, it comes. What I'm trying to get better at, because I'm like one of those guys who I work late and I send out emails and I don't expect people to respond right away. But sometimes they feel like they have to. So now I'm like, I'm just sending this out. You don't have to respond. We can talk about it tomorrow. But yeah, sometimes you just let it get out there.
Yeah, it's energy. It's like pure energy. It's like it's almost he has a life on his own. And I think like your story reminds ourselves like about the creative process that is so random sometimes. You get an idea, it comes to you, and you had to let it out, and you have to pass on to someone else.
Yeah.
And that would happen with Mary Clayton. That story is crazy to me, and it also has a sad outcome because she was pregnant, actually, and because she strained her voice so much, and you can hear in the truck, she had a miscarriage that night. Yeah, but the truck and this the song is, I mean, to these days, every time I listen to the song, I get chills. Anyway, okay, fifth question.
Fifth question. Okay, I'm ready.
Those who believe Earth's oceans are on evaporation course say that we have about 4 billion years left. It's a lot of time, but it's like it still pisses me off.
I'm going to be around, so
4 billion years is okay, but it still pisses me off to know that the magnificent beauty of the ocean could one day disappear, and in the worst way possible. In fact, according to this theory, by then our aging sun will have swelled up into a red giant 100 times its size, and the ocean will be boiling. It's like pretty much like making spaghetti with the universe. Talking about the advertising business, it's been around for a while, yet there is no day that goes by that someone doesn't claim that we are done, that we are headed towards extinction, and blah, blah, blah. Now, what do you think? Will our industry vaporize one day? Or will brands always be in need of advertising?
Well, here's what I think. We'll always have advertising. The difference is, I think, who will be doing it, right? So right now, agencies are doing it, but you look and you see consultancies starting to get into that space. You see brands bringing some of that responsibility in-house. You see consultants doing it. And by the way, you see users doing it, right? Consumers are doing user-generated advertising. Influencers are doing it. Media companies are doing it. So the answer is, I think it's always going to be here. I think the difference is who's actually going to be leading it or who's actually going to be participating in that process. And, if I used your analogy, even when things evaporate, there's still water, right? So it's still going to be around, it's just going to be in a different form. And so I do think it's still there. And I think it's important because, advertising can be fun and can be entertaining and can be informative and can be joyful. It can move us in ways that, other great art forms can also move us. And so for me, it's like saying, is art going to go away? No, it's not going to go away. That, it might not be oil paints, it might be watercolors, or it might be, not classical music, it might be hip hop. So there are just different kind of forms that it's going to take. And that's kind of actually, I don't look at it in a negative way. I look at it in an exciting way. If you're someone who's curious and you want to kind of explore new opportunities, then it could be really great. So I look at it as the glass half full, not half empty.
Right. When I was studying advertising back in Italy, there was this quote that stuck with me, and it was brands that clients that try to stop advertising to save money is like someone tried to stop the clock trying to save time. So it's like almost impossible, right? So, and I think I like a lot what you just say. It's never gonna go away, but the difference is who is gonna do it.
Yeah.
And that's a big question mark. You're right, because our industry is changing so much, so quickly. It's a legitimate question. Who is gonna do it? Who is gonna lead this?
Here's what I would say. The people who aren't adapting are gonna be going away. It's not that the discipline is gonna go away. It's those who don't adapt. If you look at what Henry Ford did, when he believed that, we were only going to create, black Model Ts, and then that's all he was going to do. And you're like, well, wait a minute. The world is going to be different. People are going to have different tastes, and maybe we shouldn't just be doing the same thing the same way. So
awesome, man. Okay, so the Atlantic takes about 3 or 4 weeks to cross. But when you are in the open waters with no land in sight, time plays tricks on you, and the hours stretch. The silver lining is that you have a lot of time on your hands. So allow me to bring this analogy into the real world. For instance, I've always dreamed of stretching the day to the 25th hour. Now, if I were to give you a 25th hour, what would you do with it?
If I had an extra hour, I'd probably put on my headphones and listen to Anita Baker's Rapture album. There's just something about that album that has stood the test of time, that takes me in this incredible space. It's a creative space. It's a calming space. It's an artistic space. So that's probably what I would do. I don't think I would add any more work. I would take that time to kind of do something that just brings me joy.
I love it, because you can tell the music is such a big part of your life. And and when I was doing my own work, reading about your story, I know that's it played when you were working on Pepsi, it played like a huge part in your career. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you work with amazing artists
oh my God, yeah,
David Bowie, and Michael Jackson. So
yeah, when I was at Pepsi, I had this incredible journey at Pepsi. I started as in the research department. So part of my brain, I love the data, and I love what storytelling what data can do in terms of telling stories. But ultimately, I ended up on the Pepsi business, and then becoming their music marketing manager, almost like an A&R person, where I was going out and looking for talent to sponsor and to be a part of the brand. And it wasn't just music talent. It was Marlon Brando. It was just a range of people. But music has always been a big part of Pepsi's DNA. so yes, I worked with Michael Jackson, David Bowie, Tina Turner, Gloria Estefan. Well, it was Miami Sound Machine, so that's how long ago it was. And then it became Gloria Estefan and Miami Sound Machine, and then it was Gloria Estefan. And so we had some, Ray Charles, and just a range of this incredible art,
Beautiful,
incredible musicians. But I will tell you, actually, my passion for music, I will tell you, the first record that I ever bought as a kid was, and my poor grandmother, God rest her soul, she was with me, and I played this record. It was a 45, and it was the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I must have played that thing to the wax off on the record, just kind of.
Isn't it strange how like certain kind of like memories that just like find their way in our brain? Like the very first record I ever listened to when I was a kid, it was Edith Piaf. And I still remember, because my mom loved Edith Piaf, the singer. I still remember like
incredible,
like album cover, full red with like Edith Piaf written like handwriting. And my mom always like used to listen like La Vie en Rose. So, and somehow, for some strange reason, the very first time I hear the voice of Whitney Houston, I always thought that
there's a purity,
the quality and the crystalline, the crystalline tone. You remind me of the Edith Piaf.
Yeah, there's a purity in that voice, in the way they can bend notes. It seems effortless. And when I think about, I'm not a musician. I don't read music, but I really believe everyone has this musical pulse, this rhythm in their bodies that helps them kind of go through the world. When I look at creative, I'm often, I'm not just looking at the words, I'm not just looking at the pictures, I'm also thinking about the rhythm of the spot. And, growing up, my family, my dad, my mom, always had music playing, and it was a range of music. It was Dionne Warwick, it was the Staple Singers, it was Edwin Hawkins, it was it was Vanilla Fudge rock music. It was just this incredible range of artists. And I think I actually got an appreciation for that form of storytelling and that form of movement, and how that could kind of capture the thought and the time of the day. And so anyways, so music has always been a part of my life, both, personally and I guess professionally.
Awesome, man. Look, last question.
Okay.
So this is a question we ask to all our guests. Okay. If you were to name a wind that blows your sail, what would the name be?
The name of the wind that would blow my sail would probably be The Courage to Collide.
Beautiful, beautiful definition, man.
And so, but collide, I would talk about it in terms of like almost like a kaleidoscope, right? So, and I've said this, I've shared this with my team before. I really believe that each of us is our own kind of unique pieces of art, right? And so if you look at a kaleidoscope, you look at that piece of art individually, it's beautiful. And then when you turn it and you mix it up, it becomes, the mosaic becomes even more beautiful. And so for me, there is something that is incredibly powerful and incredibly intriguing and just more beautiful when you mix those incredible shapes together. And so, that's been a big part of kind of my life, and probably would be what I would name my wind.
What a beautiful definition. I love the kaleidoscope, man. That's great, man. Great analogy, man. Look, Aaron, thank you so much for being on board the Transatlantic. And I had to say, your ocean is beautiful. I wish you only the best and keep doing great work. We need it.
I appreciate that so much. And I appreciate what you're doing, because this is so incredible. I've seen all of the interviews. They're inspiring. They're fun. It's really, really great. So you keep doing your thing. I'll keep doing my thing. You're awesome.
All right.